Welcome to our webinar on best practices from regional local ecosystem in Vestland in the context of formal and non-formal adult education. The objectives of this webinar is to provide you with some ideas, how to build local and regional ecosystem for adult learning. See, you can have some ideas to replicate these best practices in your region. And if you see the possibility for replication, please let us know, because that will be our work package 5. And how to involve and collaborate more cross-sectoral collaboration for adult education. As you will see, we have 4 webinars from 4 different sectors. The first one is Bergen Opportunity, While Skills Meet Potentials, with Eva Bella Ramsos, the project leader for Bergen Opportunity. And then we have our own business startup service from Vestland County Council with Paul Evers. And then we have research findings on the Gloppen model, which is the speakers are digital. There are 2, the senior researcher, Astrid and Øyvind. And then the last but not least, voluntarism, a link to working life and society, Andres Lopez from National Association for Adult Learning. So before we start, I would like to say that there will be question and answers both in the chat and from the audience. Those who are in the audience, they can come forward here and have their questions. And in the chat, Tina, the project coordinator for REGALE, will take care of the questions in chat and everything related, technical things related with the webinar. So I think we start. Our first speaker is Eva Bella Ramsos, Bergen Opportunity, and we're really, really delighted to have you here, Eva. You can present yourself and start.
First of all, thank you for inviting me to speak. Very humble to be invited into this by Vestland County as a best practice in our region. My name is Eva Bell Ramos, and I work at the local Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Bergen Chamber of Commerce and Industry. I thought I would start a little bit just explaining what our organization is. Well, I can start anyways. Bergen Opportunity is a mentor and leadership development program for immigrants in our region, the Bergen region. About 17.5% of our local population has an immigrant background. Just yesterday, we had a big fair for recently arrived refugees, a lot of them Ukrainians, where we matched them with the local businesses in, especially in the tourism industry. A lot of the businesses have reduced their amount of employees during the pandemic, and now they need to scale up for the summer. And so with a lot of people unemployed and who have come recently, we tried to match them. And I think the reason we do this work is because our local businesses say that the most important factor for them to grow in the future is to attract and retain the right competency in our region. We need to keep the students that come to our region to study. The academic sector is a huge part of our region. We need that students that come to study here from abroad and from other parts of the country and also from locally, that they perceive it as attractive to stay. And it's the same with the immigrant population. We also want to work more towards the immigrant population to make sure that they perceive our region as inclusive and attractive. Our businesses, or our members, are 3,000 businesses in our region. Together, they represent about 120,000 employees. We're a private organization, so the businesses pay us to do work for them. A lot of it is politics, business politics. And I think for a lot of people, it's not clear how diversity fits into this picture, but diversity has been a very important part of our organization for many years. I think it started with the recognition of the organization being too many men. We're 175 years old, and from way back, it was only men in the organization, all types of advisory networks and in leadership positions in the administration. There were some women in the secretary positions, but other than that, it was pure men's organization. And I think the work with getting women into the organization has now developed also into getting more immigrants into and involved in our work through our advisory network. And also, I think at our conferences and our meetings, it's really important to show the diversity that's in our region. We have around 150 events each year. A lot is industry focused, and we need to make sure that there are women on the stage. We need to make sure that there are immigrants on the stage to make sure that different voices and different perspectives are available. And that's what I was going to say about our organization. Bergen Opportunity is a project we started 3 years ago. All three generations or cohorts of participants have been struck by the pandemic in some way. For the first participants, they got it at the end of the first year, and for the second, it was the whole year, and for the third, it has been half of the year. So it's been of course a little bit insecure times to have a developmental program, but we've been able to have 3 years that have been mostly physical modules. We have around monthly meetings with the participants, and some are also with the mentors. One of the mentors is here today, Aida. And it's important for us to have mentors from central and leadership positions in public sector, in private sector, in different industries. Aida is one that represents the public sector. And I also think that the mentors need to show the diversity in our region, because the reason we started the program is that there was a lack of role models with an immigrant background in different industries, in the public and private sector in the region. And I think if all the mentors were men over 50 with ethnic Norwegian background, it wouldn't show the diversity, because we do have some role models and we do have some diversity in leadership positions, even though it's not enough. When we pick participants, we pick them based on getting a lot of diversity. I'm sitting with this right now. We got 180 applicants this year, and it's for us important to show the different types of stories and perspectives in the immigrant population. They represent a lot of different cultures, a lot of different age groups are involved, and I think job situation is also a determining factor on how people's lives are. So we choose people who are unemployed, overqualified, who are in relevant work, entrepreneurs, and also some that are in leadership positions. But a lot of the focal point of the program is to have a leadership development program, and also give them or motivate them to take central and leadership positions in our society and in our work life. So we've had 120 participants now, and it's been 20 each year. So we have 60 mentors and 60 participants, and the fourth group is on its way. It's what I'm working on right now, and I'm calling references to the top 30 that we've had into interviews for the last week. It's a really exciting work. The picture is from the first year where we started, and I was very happy that the local newspaper wrote about all the mentors and all the mentees. And I think, well, the headline is, this is how they're going to get included. I think in some sense, it kind of misperceives what the project's supposed to be, because it's not, or I think the big value that we've shown these 3 years is that it's a very reciprocal program. It's something that gives the mentors new perspectives. They get insight into what it's like to be an immigrant in our local society and work life. And I think for the participants, of course, there's a lot of, they get networks, they get a leadership development program, and they get a mentor that can guide them and give them insight into the industry they are focused on. This is the first group of participants we had in 2019 to 2020. They start in August, then we go to June. And the second group And you see it for every picture, kind of the distance between all the participants get higher or further and further. So this is the pandemic group. 20 participants, mostly from countries outside of Europe. Outside of Western countries has kind of been our definition. We think that the immigrant population that most barriers is the non-Western immigrant population. So most of the participants are from Asia, Eastern Europe, Africa, and South America. The goals with the Bergen Opportunity Project is short-term to give career progress to the participants. They have to define their goals themselves. They're in different situations, so they have to tell us what they want to achieve, or their mentors. We desperately need more role models in our region. We need them to be visible in media. We need them to be visible in their organizations and in our work life. The pictures are 3 important role models in our region. Kathleen Mathisen is one a lot of immigrants know. Who's an HR director. She's been in shipping and she's now in seafood. And I can tell that she means a lot to a lot of immigrants. Just being a role model and being vocal and being visible. And I think she's attended hundreds of seminars about diversity in our region. Kind of building competency about diversity is very important and a part of this project too. In the longer term, we want the participants to take leading positions. There are many ways to take leading positions, maybe in the organizations they're in today. It could be in volunteer work. In the volunteer sector, we see that a lot of immigrants are involved in immigrant volunteer groups, but they're not into the larger, the big volunteer organizations, at least not in the leading positions in the volunteer organizations. And the more holistic goal is to work with values and attitudes. And I think a lot of immigrants in meeting barriers with their background don't realize the potential that's in diversity and having organizations with diversity. So kind of what we want to be working with is leadership in public, private sector, and in society. I think studies have shown that leaders often hesitate to take in diversity simply because they're uncertain about how to deal and how to lead diverse organizations. So I think in a lot of organizations in our region, at least, you can see that leaders segregate into different work groups so that you have immigrant populations, for example, cleaning or in specific tasks that they can produce, but they don't need to socialize that much with the more ethnic majority. And a lot of the companies that talk are very vocal about diversity. They have a lot of diversity in the bottom line, but when you move up in the organization, there's no diversity. And I think that's not diversity leadership. And I think organizations need to be actively working with how to deal with this diversity in organizations. And I think assimilation is a common technique leaders use to lead diversity. They kind of absorb the national culture. In Norway, we're, for example, very egalitarian. I think our organizations are very egalitarian, and for immigrants, it could be unclear what are the playing rules, what is the culture, and I think we need to work on how to lead when people have different cultures and different backgrounds, because most of our organizations are very Norwegian culturally, even though they're pretty internationally focused and sell their products in the international market. All the colors and stuff got mixed up, but I think you can read at least this one well. So this is just showing you the program we go through each year. I'm going to mix it up a little bit for the next year, and it's monthly modules where we meet either all mentors, mentees, or just the participants. We have a module on presentation technique and rhetoric, which gives kind of direct individual feedback on presentation technique. I think it's uncomfortable to present in another language than your mother tongue, and a lot of us lose a lot of our character when we have to be in our second or third language. Some of these people speak 6 languages. It's amazing, and I think we need to kind of use the potential that's in that. We also have a module on diversity leadership. We invite to our annual conference, which is our biggest event, with leaders from different industries and top leaders from private, public sector, and politicians. We have a module on personality where we give them a questionnaire and they get some feedback on kind of unevaluating stuff. It's for a developmental setting, so we don't give negative kind of personality characteristics. And we have 3 modules on mentoring, what is mentoring, and also following up on how the mentor relationship is going. We had to do that one digitally this year, which is, they're very pro, the company that we collaborate with on that module, and they did it well, but I think it's very important to meet physically, because network is kind of part of the whole idea, with both for the leaders and for the participants. The module in February got postponed because of the pandemic, so we had it a couple of weeks ago at Bergen, which is one of, I think it's the largest local or regional newspaper in Norway, and they presented how Norwegian media works, and they also presented how to write what do you call it, debattinnlegg, opinions in the newspaper, how to get them published, and kind of what they look for. I think very few of these have been in the newspaper before, even though they have very interesting opinions and backgrounds to kind of challenge or start a debate. And we also have a lot about labor laws, and I think many aren't updated on the Norwegian labor market and are uncertain about leading in Norway because they don't know the rules in the labor market well enough. Here are some of the participants we've had this year. Lomita is, I think, a perfect example of integration in our region, and it's not our fault. I was about to say it's not as a result of our program. She came to Norway as a refugee from Ethiopia and worked as an engineer on infrastructure in her home country and had a bachelor's degree. And I think during her first year in Norway, she got an opportunity to work in an internship at Sweco, which is an infrastructure company in our region. And she's been working on the light rail. Have you seen the light rail after you came, the ones who are visiting? She's been working on the light rail in Bergen and developing it for 4 years. And she said when she came to the workplace in internship, she was just focused on learning the language. She never thought she would get a job, but I think they used maybe 3 or 4 months and they hired her full time, and she's been a great success for them. And I think probably it's a little bit about Sweco. It says a little bit about Sweco in that they're good at leading organizations with different people, and that they probably are. They have some diversity leadership in the organization. Amir Sheikh, the one in the middle, works in the local renovation company, and he used to work at he used to lead the postal office or the postal terminal in Bergen. He did a great career as already a 16-year-old. He started working his way up and made it to the top, and he's been having a lot of trouble finding new leadership positions. And I think even though he's lived most of his life in Norway, he does meet some barriers connected with just having a different name. And we see that in general about there's a 25% less probability of being called into interviews if your name has a Muslim kind of name, or in general a foreign name. For the last years, I don't think a lot of Norwegians know, but we've had a lot of Indian and a lot of Turkish immigrants. A lot of the refugees have been political refugees from Turkey, and Rabia is a political refugee, worked as a journalist in Turkey and couldn't anymore because of Erdogan, and moved to Norway only I think it's under 3 years ago. And working in communications in your home country, it's very difficult to get a similar break in a different country. So we've been working a lot with how she can get a break into the labor market, a relevant job. She's been working a little bit for us as a freelancer on Bergen Opportunity, writing about articles with different topics, but interviewing a lot of the participants and the mentors to kind of show or tell the stories that we want to promote in doing the project. I'll speed up a little bit. Short about my background. I wrote a master's degree about leadership program for immigrants. We studied 600 immigrants in our sister organization, Global NHO, the Norwegian Confederation of Enterprises. They had a similar program, and what we could see is that no matter where the immigrants came from, how much education they had, how they adapted to Norway, their personality, nothing affected their careers. All the participants in general broke the classical barriers of integration and did very well in Norwegian work life. So when we started the Bergen Opportunity Program, it was kind of the idea was just trying to continue the good work that was done for many years in our region. And my father is an immigrant. He came to Norway from Peru, and I think having a lot of his perspectives with me in the project has been important. He struggled a lot to get leadership positions. He's worked in the same company his whole life. And also I learned, as I was doing the project, I learned he's had some very important mentors in his life, and they kind of opened doors for him when he first came here. One met him at the airport in Trondheim, and the article that's there is a lot about the mentors not being people who wanted to be nice, but that wanted to develop their company. And I'm called Ivar after my grandfather in Gudbrandsdalen, but Ivar was also the first company leader to take my father in and give him a job. So for him, it was very easy to call me Ivar when my mom asked. I'll speed up. As I said, the results have been a good 7 out of 10 have had career progress after 1 year. You see that more people are getting into leadership positions, and they're also in more relevant positions after the program. We see that they're more visible, and we're very happy that the project supports our most important objective, which is attracting and retaining talent in our region. I think they've been pretty vocal in media since they entered the program, and I think it creates role models, and it also gets the new perspectives into our work life and society, which is important. Since I have 30 seconds left, I'll just end with a little bit about what we're looking now into the future. And one thing is we need partners that are following us over many years, such as the county has been doing for the last 3 years. We also have the municipality and the NAV, the welfare organization, supporting us. And we also need to have a program for all the people who are finished in the program. We see that they're not completely done after 1 year, so we need to kind of use them and use the resources into everything we're doing, and also create a network arena for them across the different cohorts. And I'm very happy that other projects similar to ours have started in other regions in Norway, and I hope in the future we'll see them in Europe as well. That's me.
Thank you very much, and we are opening for some questions, both in chat and from the audience. Shall we take the questions from the chat first? No. Good. And any questions from audience? Then you can come here.
We have a question from Francesca.
Hello, can I ask a question? Yeah. I was just wondering how the Norwegian people reacted to the program or to the project when told, if this was promoted, because sometimes I mean, first of all, this project is great, and I think we all agree that it's very needed in all countries. But yes, I was wondering whether that would be this this rhetoric about you know, you work, you support foreigners to get leadership positions. What about the Norwegian? No, this is something that we keep hearing in our countries, and I was wondering how this project was received by the Norwegian society.
Thank you for a great question, Francesca. I think for the last 3 years, all the people who we have asked to be mentors have responded positively. So it's been easy to involve leaders and people from central positions into the project. I think it could also be a little bit about our organization, that we have, we're very well connected in our region, and a lot of the leaders give us credibility in working with these kinds of issues. I think if the public sector were the ones holding the project, it would be more difficult to attract the leaders and the central people from central positions. So I'm very humbled that the Bergen Chamber of Commerce and Industry has taken this in as one of the important projects to be working on.
It's great that they recognize the added value and yeah, the positive aspects of this work. That's great. Congratulations.
And I can add one thing, and when we visited, for instance, the media or a local newspaper a couple of weeks ago, they have a big issue in that they're not able to get immigrant voices into the newspaper. They say that 4% of the debate or opinions in the newspaper are written by immigrants. And they say, we want more, we wanted it to reflect the immigrant population, which is 17.5%. And so they also have a mandate and social responsibility that they're not able to cover. And it's not only our local newspaper, it's our local television, it's our national television, it's NRK, it's TV2, it's a lot of the media companies are struggling with this. And it's not only media, it's across industries.
We have another question from Francesca Pallone.
Yes, thank you very much. It was interesting to hear these inspiring activities. I wonder about the mentors. These are one of the key successful factors of the program. So how you select them, how you train or accompany them as they play a pivotal role in supporting people that are different one from each other. So selection, some supporting measures or activities you have for them if they are trained specifically to play this role, and if they also got some troubles in playing their roles towards the individuals they were working for. Thank you.
Thank you, Francesca, for the questions. Broad questions. I think the first question I picked up was how we pick mentors, and we try to match them based on competency, background, and also a little bit about their passions. I think this has been going better and better. For the first year we did this, we didn't have interviews of the participants. We didn't really know them, and getting to know them, I think it's a little bit easier to also match on personality. So we try to pick mentors from our network, people we know, so that there's also some kind of personal connection, I think. But the most important is either an industry connection or an educational background, so they have some similarity. But it's amazing when you bring people together, they're very quick to find similarities. I think we always do that when we meet people. We just try to find some similarities, and I think they find it on their own behalf without us doing that much. So I think what we've gone more towards is just finding leaders and people from central positions, people who can influence their organizations, and that have a lot of experience that they can give on to their mentee.
Next speaker is our very own Paul Evers. I just don't want to miss out the opportunity to introduce you, because I think it was very interesting for me to read. Paul holds a master's in management and owns the chocolate factory in Bergen.
Correct.
And he says that sharpening a business idea so that it has a bigger chance to become a successful business startup is both interesting and exciting. The Belgian-born father of two speaks French, German, Dutch, English, and Norwegian, and loves everything with our stylish Bergen, except for the rain. So the screen is yours, Paul.
Hello, everybody. My name is Paul Evers. I am born and raised in Belgium, and I've been 25 years in Norway, and I work as a senior advisor in Etablera Center. Etablera Center is an initiative with a joint venture of 15 of the municipalities in Vestland County, and together with the Fylkeskommune, which is the organism which covers the whole county, we are meant to help people who are wanting to start their own business. Most of the time, these people or entrepreneurs are adults, younger and older adults. They have often a business career already, and they want to start their own business. So a typical example is a person who has a hobby like beekeeping and is wondering if he should start to sell the honey on the market to make some money. So our mission is to help these entrepreneurs to get them started on the right foot, not making too much mistakes, not basing the business initiative on misunderstandings. So we have both consulting face-to-face with people coming to our office. We have also a lot of courses for people that need a little bit business techniques in their baggage before they start. I can go over to this one. The Vestland Fylke is quite a large county with 630,000 inhabitants. They are spread over 43 municipalities. The smallest village, if I can say, has only 378 people. The largest, which is Bergen, has almost 300,000. So these sizes are quite different. And the mission for us is to give all these inhabitants the same access to help, the same access to knowledge, the same access to a market, which probably exists or not for their products or services. We are covering the southern part of the county, which is from Bergen inland and southbound. You have to imagine that to travel by car from north to south in the same county, we are not talking about the country, but the county takes you 9 hours by car. So it's a quite long distance if you have to travel by car. So a lot of initiatives are on the net by Teams and digital meetings on Teams, which is a big step forward to meet as much as entrepreneurs as possible. I can the most common misunderstanding people starting for their own business is that they are underestimating the difficulties in the market. The question we ask often is there a market for your product or for your service? Because you cannot rely on the amount of likes on your Facebook page when you start the business, because you have to check with a prototype, with some samples. Is the customer willing to pay for your product before you are starting to produce your product? It's the American style of doing business. Do not start business activities before you are sure that there is a market, that there are people wanting your product. Are you solving a problem for your customer? If you don't think this way, you are risking sitting with a lot of products or services that nobody wants. The second pitfall for business entrepreneurs, even adults with a lot of experience from business life, is that they underestimate the amount of cash that they need to sustain the first 6 months or the first year of their business. So often we advise these entrepreneurs to keep their employment while they are starting a business parallel. And if the business is doing well, they can reduce the amount of employment at their employer to start the business in parallel, not taking for granted that this business will be a success. So as you can see on the slide here, Bergen has all facilities with universities, markets, schools, defense, and traffic infrastructure, which makes it easy for a business and upgoing business entrepreneur to find the market. This thing is not the same. If you see in comparison to Bergen, which is a big city with all facilities that you can imagine for a modern city in Europe, you have also these small villages long inside in the fjord, where you can find a church, one boutique to make your daily shopping, one school, and a bus that goes to Bergen once in the morning and once in the afternoon, and that's it. So our challenge is to meet and to help an entrepreneur, even if he's living long inside the fjord, where you don't have these facilities that you have in Bergen, of course. I can tell you about some people that have been with us, what kind of offer we present to these entrepreneurs, adult entrepreneurs. There's the first one is like an introduction into what business life is when you are coming from a hobby activity and you want to start your own business. What requirements do you need as an entrepreneur? What kind of structure are you looking for? Are you doing this business for yourself, or do you need a business partner? Maybe your brother, your sister, your father, your uncle. Are you alone, or are you many people together, like shareholders? What do you need to send your first invoice? The most important thing for an entrepreneur is to get your first invoice out of the office, to deliver your product together with an invoice. For the beekeeping business, would be like a honey delivery with an invoice, of course. As long as you don't if you are not able to send invoices, you have a problem. You need sales, you need cash coming into your bank accounts. The next step that we suggest, the next course that we suggest, is what we call the Etablerde Kurs, where we go a little more in detail. Is your business idea good enough to meet the market? What qualities do you need when you want to become a successful entrepreneur? Be aware of bad sleeping at night, because things may not appear as they were meant to appear. You can go out of cash. You can meet a lot of situations that make you nervous as an entrepreneur. Things that you maybe not are aware of as an employee. The third level that we propose, that's a one-day course. It's a course that takes bookkeeping under special attention, because a lot of people know very much their product, but they know nothing about bookkeeping, about accounting. This is also one of the reasons that many entrepreneurs don't succeed with the business, because they didn't know that they were running out of cash. They didn't know why the business is doing very well, and they don't know why it's doing very badly. So you need to know let's say the 1, 2, 3, the basic things that you, even if you are a dummy in bookkeeping, that you know what you are doing and how your business is doing. What about the health of your business? And the doctor for you to tell you how you are sick or not is the bookkeeper for your business. Your bookkeeper will help you to understand the figures. The bookkeeper will tell you if your business is doing well. And if it's not doing well, the bookkeeper will also tell you what you have to do to get your business again on track. So this is an important step that we think that you need to have in your baggage if you want to become a successful entrepreneur. If you don't want to have to stop your business without any success. And the last thing is also the marketing business. If you are a beekeeper and people are used to come at your home and to buy 1 or 2 glasses of honey, that's one thing. If you want to sell your honey in a shop or on a public market, that's a different thing. You have to understand how this market works, how this market functions. Is there some competition? Is my product genuine enough? Should I sell something else than honey? Should I sell bee wax, my candles? Should I sell propolis, which is a special product what the queen in the beehive is producing? So you have to find out what is the best product you can produce to get the most profit in my business. And that's maybe not a question that the hobby beekeeper is having in mind when he's dealing with his hobby. But if you are meeting competition in a shop, you're meeting competition on a public market, you have to be aware how this market functions. Another thing is also that many people are aware that they should have a homepage, a landing page. They know that they should be on Facebook, but there are different ways to present your product, your service on Facebook. And believe it or not, a lot of customers are more interested in the story of your business than in the honey. So what is my narrative? What is my story? Where do I come from? Is my products, are my bees organic? Are my bees pollinating an apple field in Hardanger? So all this makes your product more interesting, makes your product more special, and you will probably be closer to the market and to people who are willing to pay a lot of money for your product. So these things are important for coming. Yes, here is, let me present you Simona. Simona is from Italy. She was working as a petroleum engineer in the Norwegian oil industry until she found out that she wanted to start for herself. And she started a company which she called Solbader, which meant sunberry. And Simona has started a couple of years ago with installing solar panels, use photovoltaic power, so electricity with some sunshine. And right now she has been so successful that she has been bought out. So she now no longer owns her business, but she's product manager in a larger company, which bought out Simona from her business, which, believe it or not, is a success. If someone wants your product and wants you to be a product engineer in that division, that's a success. So we are proud to have been one of the first meeting points to help Simona to come out from an employee status, become self-employed. So that's a nice story. Let me see if I can take the next one. This is Vilde. Vilde has been a trainee in Silicon Valley some years ago. And when she came back, she wanted to start her own business. And she thought about organic, healthy food. And the product or the value proposition that Vilde has is kind of food wall where you can pay with your credit card or your tapping with your telephone, and you can choose a plate like salad, like cheese and ham and all kind of stuff, cold plates that you can get out of these food walls. And right now she has placed food walls everywhere in Bergen, and now she's expanding, scaling up. Right now she has started in Oslo, in other big cities in Norway. And the idea is to spread out over Scandinavia. So also Vilde has been at Etablera Center and got help from us to start on the right foot, not making the common mistakes or starting with the common misunderstandings about being a successful entrepreneur. Well, that's almost all I had to tell you, Shahnaz. So if you have some questions, I'd be glad to answer on these.
Do you have some questions in chat?
No question.
Any question from the audience? You just come.
What about how you organize yourself in different municipalities? The meetings you have with municipalities. Maybe you have to represent
Yeah. As you see, the profile or the access for an entrepreneur in Bergen is different than an entrepreneur in a little village along into the fjords. So the thing is, either these people come to Bergen and participate on courses we hold here in Bergen, or the other thing is that we meet the entrepreneur there where he lives. And sometimes in Bergen, we have an audience about 10 to 15, 20 people at the meeting, at the course here in Bergen, when we are traveling into on the countryside, I can say it like this, we have 2, 3 dynamic entrepreneurs who need probably a little different approach to continue with their business idea, with their business model, because doing business in a small village where everybody knows each other, where everybody is related to each other, everybody has the same family name. So doing business on the countryside is not the same as doing business in a big city like Bergen. Even if many people know each other in Bergen, and Bergen is a big village also in the kind of way, but we try to adapt to our public. See, we're telling the same story, but with a different angle.
We have a question from the chat from Francesca Torlone. She wonders whether you support people in the idea creation. Do they come to you when they already know the product service they want to develop and where they want to develop it, or do you help them in this process?
Most people come to us with a project in mind. So our job is to stimulate, say, listen, your project is so good, you should have started a long time ago. Or, which is also a relevant answer, is listen, your product looks good, but you should sharpen your product. You should sharpen to get a better value proposition. Don't rely on the Facebook likes. Don't rely on the comments of your husband, your father, or your brother. That means, excuse me, that means nothing. You have to go out to the market with some samples. You have to be in the road and say, listen, hello people, my name is Pick. I want to sell you this and this. And if you see a reaction, the reaction is very precious for you starting your business. How is the reaction of these people? What do they tell you? Do they tell you that it's too small, too expensive, too nice, not practical? So all these informations are very precious in the beginning of your business. So we try, when we meet our entrepreneurs, to be very aware of these feedback that you get, because the feedback often is free of charge. It's very precious to make your product really sharp, to get the highest price for your precious honey in that case.
I have a question. Because you said that running a business or starting a business in a village where everybody knows everyone is easier than starting in big city. So I was just thinking that many of the migrants who come, for them, whether it's a big city or small city, it is unknown. It is big. It could be more challenging no matter where you start, because you don't have this family name. So I was just, it's not question, it's just my concern is that how do you see that if any migrants want to start up their own business, they have more challenges and they need more startup support than the majority?
Very good question. Let me precise. The job starting your business in a big city or in a small village is not easier or more difficult. It's different. It's not easier. You can be a very successful entrepreneur in this village, can be a very unsuccessful entrepreneur in a big city. So there is nothing easier or more difficult, but it's different. You have to be aware about what you can do, what are you best to, and what is the market asking for. As an immigrant let's say, from another country than Western Europe or USA, which has a Western philosophy, I think the most important is to understand the codes. You know, what is humor in Norway? What are people telling? What kind of jokes are they telling? What is acceptable and what is not acceptable? You see, so you can learn the Norwegian language, you can understand everything, but as long as you don't have understood the codes, what do Norwegians do to enjoy themselves? What do they do when they party? So when you get closer to the what should I say, the kernel, the center of the interest of the Norwegian customer, excuse me for the business economics here, but if you understand the codes, it will be much easier. So I personally would say that jump into it, try to find your place, try to find your seat, try to find your place, try to find a gap in a place that can be a village or a big city, but you have to hunt for the gap, the empty gap. And there are many gaps and coming and disappearing. So you have to follow the market, trying to find out where is my place, where I'm genuine, where I can impress my customers or my people around me, and making the best of my stay in Norway. Norway is a nice country, wonderful country. You need an income as an employee or self-employed. Where is my place? And Career Centers, as you saw earlier today, Career Center is one of the bricks in our system to help you coming more closer. Yeah.
Yes. Any more questions? No. Then we'll move on to the next. Like it works. So our next speakers are Astrid Bergen and Øyvind Helland, senior researcher from Norwegian Research Center. And we are very delighted to have you here. You are digitally with us. But we got so used to it doesn't make actually any difference whether we are sitting far remote from each other, because we used to get closer. We learned how to get closer digitally as well. So Bergen has experience from several research projects on vocational education and training for adult migrants, and integration and collaboration between public and third sector. While Helland has broad experience from public sector innovations, including vocational education and training for adult migrants, public health and service addressing needs. So we are very glad that you will talk about or you will tell a lot about, we will tell us more about Gloppen model, because we have heard this yesterday in our yesterday's session, those who were here. And we are really, really looking forward to see the research findings on Gloppen model. So please go ahead.
Thank you, Shahnaz. I'm wondering, should we share the screen ourselves? Just practical question. I think it's easier because we can just flip the slides ourselves.
No problem. Then you can stop sharing ours and you will share yours. Please go ahead.
So, can you see our presentation?
It's perfect. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So, my name is Astrid Bergen, and I'm here with my colleague.
Hello, my name is Øyvind Helland.
And we'll present the research findings on the Gloppen model. Unfortunately, I wish we could have presented ourselves as owner of a chocolate factory, but the truth is that we work as senior researchers in NORS, Norwegian Research Center. Very briefly about NORS, We have about 900 researchers, and we have offices in several cities in Norway. The two of us, we represent the Department of Health and Social Science, and we are situated in Kristiansand, in the south of Norway. So, as Shahnaz said, those of you who were present in Bergen yesterday, you heard Anne Festival presenting the global model. And today we'll talk about the research findings and why, what, and how. First of all, why? Why have we researched the global model? What triggered the idea of the research project? And then what? What are the research findings? And then finally, how? How can the model be replicated by others? This picture is from the project website. I guess this was also presented to you yesterday. Unfortunately, this is in Norwegian only, but for the Norwegian speakers, I would recommend to take a look at this website, globbenmodel.no. So how did we end up researching the Gloppen model? Well, the Gloppen model had been a case in a research project about health and care sector as a training and qualification arena for refugees and immigrants. Our colleague who was heading the project was then contacted by NAV Gloppen, NAV being an abbreviation for the Norwegian Labour and Welfare Administration. In Gloppen, they knew that from the results that they were doing something right, but they were worried that the model itself, and particularly the cooperation between several public and private actors, was too vulnerable and too dependent on the individuals who had been involved from the start. So together we applied for fundings from the Directorate of Integration and Diversity in 2019. And we applied for a 3-year project. The objective of the project was developing an adapted vocational education and training model for immigrant adults, where recommendations regarding cooperation, financing, selection of participants, teaching methods, and follow-up of employers were central elements. During the project period, we would develop written guidelines and also document the work of developing and improving the model in a research report. So how have we as researchers been involved? Well, this is probably how many people envision research and researchers. Where the researcher is on the sideline, monitoring, evaluating, analyzing the project without really getting involved. The reality, on the other hand, is more like this. As researchers, we have followed the principle of action design research, meaning that we have been seeking to develop scientific knowledge while simultaneously acting to solve real problems together with the project team. And usually we would do this by working side by side, sitting together. Of course, the last 2 years have involved a lot more digital meetings, but we have still been discussing both challenges and possible solutions together. In addition, we as researchers have undertaken a literature review of similar models in Norway. And we have also interviewed representatives from all the cooperating actors in order to capture the experiences of the actors involved. So, finally, to the research findings. The landscape. So how is the landscape in which the Gloppen model is situated? The Gloppen model is a so-called alternation model, in Norwegian, we call it vekslingsmodell. An alternation model is characterized by more frequent changes of learning arenas between school and workplace than within the main 2+2 model, where 2 years of school-based learning are followed by 2 years of apprenticeship. An alternation model also entails that the students enter into workplace learning and become apprentices at an earlier stage. But in this regard, the Gloppen model is not unique. There are several other alternation models in Norway within vocational education and training. When comparing some of the alternation models, we found that they have all experienced challenges when it comes to financing new classes and subsistence allowance for students. In addition, the different models have, although in different ways, a high threshold for recruitment and a great focus on students having both motivation and ability to complete vocational education. Another similarity is that these models have been through continuous development. And this particular project has been carried out during a period of extreme change. First of all, the COVID-19 pandemic, but there has also been new laws and frameworks for the work of qualifying immigrant adults, in addition to major organizational changes in the public apparatus. And this is the future. There will be change in the future as well, illustrating the need for both a robust model, but also for a model that can continuously be adapted to new requirements, new challenges, and new opportunities for cooperation.
So over to the model itself. Here we see the Gloppen model translated into English. It consists of 4 phases, as you see, of cooperation across the public administration levels of municipality, county, and state. So we're crossing the borders of the different levels of public administration in Norway, and also including employers and the participants themselves. The organization of courses and training as an alternation model is found in phase 3, so the implementation phase. The other 2 on the left side is before starting the actual courses, and the last one on the right is the evaluation during and after the implementation phase. This cooperation and pedagogical framework is supported by written agreements, routines, and financial models developed and agreed upon by all central actors. You find this on the bottom there. So you have the structures for supporting the model and the different phases in the model. The existing Gloppen model was developed in 2013 and implemented straight away. As Astrid said, was based on very much central actors working together without much research following them. But we analyzed the existing model from each actor's perspective to evaluate what we need to develop in this project. And 2 key elements of the model was chosen for further development. The first area was financing new classes, i.e. developing practical financial models, defining financial models that are sustainable outside a project context. So not having a financial model that just works in a project context, but actually in ordinary business. Key innovations relate to the role of the Norwegian Labour and Welfare Administration, NAV in Norwegian, and how they can frame their financial the financial investments in these participants. So that's a part of the structures you see at the bottom. The second area was the application and admission process, defining roles, responsibilities, and systems such as interviews, templates, pre-application training, documentation of evaluations, and the use of digital application systems. So that part of the innovation we did in this project was related especially to starting new classes, the second phase of the model. These innovations to the existing model was always done with the implementation and continuous service provision in mind. So we were always thinking about this model and these changes working in real life, not just in a project context. A new area for future development was also identified through the need of continuous exchange of knowledge and experience between the actors in the model to build understanding and trust while ensuring similar execution of the model in different municipalities and different contexts. So the research findings here, we see that the inter-organizational cooperation between these actors, the municipality, the county, the state level, and businesses and the participants themselves, the inter-organizational cooperation in the Gloppen model repeats for every new class that's established. So each cycle provides the opportunity for not only for a single loop learning, but where we change our behavior based on results, but also inter-organizational double loop learning, where we reconsider requirements and goals, including values and principles. So there's an opportunity to actually adjust what we're trying to achieve with the cooperation between these organizations for every cycle that we implement the Gloppen model in a new class. That's quite important for adapting to new circumstances that Astrid talked about. The support framework for cooperation and continuous exchange of knowledge and experience between actors provide a new ways of using evaluations to reflect on the requirements and goals in the cooperation between schools, municipalities, the Labor and Welfare Administration, employers, and participants. So getting the feedback from the evaluations and using it in the collaboration is a key part. So this is key for building trust and shared experience across these actors. So now let's have a short look at some of the results from the implementation of this model. Here we see that this figure shows the status of all participants all the way back from 2013, also including 2021, this winter. We see that the majority are still in training, as you see in gray here. But if we distill this and just show you the participants in classes that have reached completion, you see this pie chart. We see that about three quarters have completed their apprenticeships or authorizations, receiving their documented education and apprenticeship. The participants still in training in the gray there are due to maternity leaves, and those moving to other parts of the country, half of them have finished their training at other schools, but we're not counting those into the results here. So, but these results far outperform the average for adult minority speakers in training in Norway. So good results so far, but we're following the results further the next years.
Yes, so as shown in the previous slides, the results from the Gloppen model are so far very good, considering that most students are adult immigrants and considering that this is a model for vocational education and training. The experience from various actors we have gathered through interviews show that behind these results is an extraordinary effort from both the workplace, but also from teachers and from students themselves. And here are a few quotes from our interviews just to underline this point. The first quote is from a business manager. The motivation for participating in the Gloppen model is the need for labor and the desire to contribute to society. We experienced that the local apprentices stay longer in the workplace and generally has a good work ethic. And the next quote is from a teacher. We facilitate by asking each student how they learn best. Then we try to adapt accordingly. The students in the Gloppen model have very different educational backgrounds. We try to facilitate by using more oral activity and visual teaching. And then the last quote is from a student who is now working as a health worker. My daughter is very proud that I work as a health worker. The fact that she can be proud and feel that her mother is a normal person who contributes to society has been important for our integration. The students we have interviewed experienced that the vocational education and training, according to the Gloppen model, is very demanding, which shows how important it is to focus on motivation, attitudes, and suitability when selecting candidates for new classes. Many of the students are relatively young adults with small children and also with financial obligations. But as adults, they also bring with them expertise in many fields from previous experiences, both from their home country and from Norway.
So that was some of the results and some of the perspectives from the participants themselves. And as third question, we're over to the how to replicate. And to address this, we distilled some core principles for the Gloppen model. So the following core principles guide new and existing implementations of the Gloppen model. So the following 7, there must exist a real and active cooperation between the actors in the qualification process, not just on paper, but actual cooperation. New classes must be based on business needs and recruitment restraints. There's no need for classes where participants cannot acquire a job, and there is no need for classes where we have no participants. So that's an important part. Participants must be motivated to complete the qualification. This is important. This model is not a universal model for all types of participants. It needs to be participants who are motivated for completing their training. So that's important to stress. This is not a universal model. It is for a segment of adult vocational training. The participants must be guaranteed apprenticeship and training on enrollment. So that means that when they start, they already have to have a guarantee for both apprenticeship, lærling in Norwegian, and training, praksis, in Norwegian. This is important for the success of the Gloppen model. Pedagogical organization must follow an alternation model with early training from year 1. So this is also a key that they start introducing themselves to the workplace already from the first year of training. Training and education must be adapted to participants with enough resources allocated. This is also a given, but it needs to be stressed, the importance of adapting training and education individually, also with enough resources allocated. The last one is the use of participant-based evaluation used in a double learning loop. So here we have the opportunity to have listen to the participants, get feedback, and use it in the cooperation between the actors. Implementing the Gloppen model in new contexts require using the development guidelines you find on the webpage and adapting elements of these to local systems and actors. Of course, there needs to be an adaptation of the model. This can be done while following the core principles as not to lose the essence of the Gloppen model. So following these principles and trying to follow the guidelines and adapting to the local context, you will hopefully achieve some of the same results as in the new no-fuel region where Gloppen is situated. Next slide, please. So, and these guidelines consist of a complete guideline, a practical step-by-step pamphlet, video examples, and ready-to-use templates for agreements, routines, evaluation, and more developed in this project that have been gathered on the website.
And just a note,
yeah,
we have actually delivered a lot more than what we promised in the project proposal.
Yeah,
because we promised to deliver guidelines and also a research report. But as Øyvind now said, we have also delivered this practical step-by-step pamphlet and video examples and also templates.
Ready to use. So,
yeah.
And you can say, well, are these useful? Well, currently there are already 3 regions outside of no-fuel who have used these resources to implement the Gloppen model, activating existing local resources and actors without much outside help. One good example is the Voss and Hardanger region, starting with health worker training and education this fall, this year. We also have Sogn for Alle, which is cooperation in the Sognefjord region, which have established restaurant training and education, even expanding the pre-application training in the Gloppen model to also cover summer jobs before school starts this fall, which is a very interesting move to expand the pre-application training. The Sunnfjord region as well, the third one, is a Sunnfjord region where they are establishing both aquaculture and restaurant training and education these days. So that's some of the examples and some of the findings. You can read more in our research report, which is online in Norwegian. Just need to learn in Norwegian first.
Or use Google Translate.
Use Google Translate or contact us. We can also speak in good English.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. I think we don't have time for accepting any question, and we apologize for that. But if there are some questions in chat, we can collect and answer, ask you for an answer later. But thank you very much for being with us. Thank you.
Well, I hope you listen. First of all, thank you very much to Vestland for having us here for 3 wonderful days in Bergen. And we have learned a lot. My topic is voluntarism linked to working life and society. If you ask any person in the world what is typical Norwegian, they will say champions on all skiing games, Olympic games, or mountains, or lusekofta, or all that kind of thing. But if you ask me, I will say that the real Norwegian substance is Norwegian is the spirit of voluntarism. And I have some facts for that, to say that, because this is Norway, and a large country. The volunteering in Norway is, Norway is a world leader in voluntary work. Half of the population in Norway is involved in voluntary work. 10,000 teams and associations are registered in Norway until 2020. Let's see what's happened after the pandemic, but there are a lot of them, 100,000. 9.2 million memberships. That means we are almost 6 million inhabitants. That means that every inhabitant has maybe 2 or 3 memberships in a voluntary organization. And 63% of the population participates actively in volunteering. This is quite fresh data from 2021. The voluntary effort corresponds to almost 5% of the NB pay. So volunteerism is quite Norwegian. This year is special for Norway because we haven't been mentioned during these 3 days, but we are celebrating this. In English, the year of volunteering. And it's very special because we are going to celebrate it the whole year. And there are going a lot of activities in the small communities, big cities, and all those activities mostly are hand in hand with the authorities and the public sector and the private sector. So even our Prince of Norway is the protector of the voluntary work in Norway. So we have a big respect for the voluntary work and volunteering. Voluntary work is today for many people an opportunity to, sorry, I have to move here, to acquire qualifications and experiences that can be of help into paid work. Similarly, several researchers believe that volunteer work is a way for people to invest in their own human capital on volunteering. Also gives people an opportunity to demonstrate their work ethic, that they are trustworthy, and that they fit into a workplace or an organization. And yeah, words can say a lot, but we need also proofs. And I have a short film here. It's not in English, but it's like a cafe in Vestland County in the eastern part of Norway, where 2 women from 2 different countries start a cafe to train themselves, mastering themselves a language, qualification, and get the opportunity to train themselves to get ready for the labor market. The woman speaking here, she's the manager of the cafe. They have been running since 2018 without help from the public sector. And they have in some way delivered almost 20% directly to the labor market. And they are in a very little village, like the village we show us today here in the fjords. There are not so many there, but there have been some kind of brand in the local community. Why I'm showing this? Because the first they start voluntary in this. That leads to training. That leads to this year, as you see, the national TV. They got placed in the news because they got the prize of learning for 2002. She said that she feels secure, including the journalists tell that it's going on a very strong collaboration between public sector and the government. So I will stop there because of the time. But as you see, from a start for for your own and practicing and mastering, you get well known in national level. It's a good example of what voluntary can do with individuals. We also have a quite important, in this case for me, to show also a factor, as I said at the beginning. It has been done a lot of quantitative, statistical surveys, but all those surveys that you see on the screen end in one common answer. And or some answer here, like increased self-confidence for the person involved in volunteers, better ability to communicate with other people. This is the answer from the persons who have been part of the surveys. Less prejudice, greater discipline, more order in their life, higher level of practical qualifications, for example, in IT sector, out of a situation characterized by social isolation. And they say also the volunteers emphasize that they could thank the supportive and the humanistic culture of voluntary organizations for the development they have been through. Strong words. This girl, she's a well-national known Norwegian actress. And she has some role in a youth series called Scam, which in English is shame. That's the word. And this Norwegian series got very popular and have been sold the rights to Italy, as you see, Germany, Spain, France, also on 13 countries in Europe. And this girl, she has a story to tell. She's not talking English, but I will translate after she tells. Sorry. She tells that in the beginning, she was quite involved in the volunteer work in her mosque. And she writes that in a blog, how is to be a young Muslim Norwegian girl in Norway. And at the same time, the national TV were looking for a profile of a girl like her. They found her publishing in the blog. They contact her. They gave her the role as Sana in this series. That leads her to be and to become an actress. And today, as I said at the beginning, she's a nationally known actress. So this is a good example how far you can come with the voluntary work. Volunteering creates added value, gives people access to social meeting places, create trust, identity, and belonging, and it's a source of building. Building is quite Scandinavian word, which in some kind is an education form based in ethics and how you can be a good citizen with good values for your work or your role in the community or society. Those add values for municipalities, local authorities, and stakeholders. Quite many of them. You have they can be or they can create diversity of arenas that have an inclusive well-being building activity and trust building between people. A good effect also in the local community, of course. Volunteering could be also used as a tool for the municipalities to achieve its goals in areas such as inclusion, public health, qualification, and goals against exclusion, child poverty, so on and so on. And also increased participation in voluntary activity increases the chances that one will get involved in several places, has a positive effect on quality of life, as I told before, and can lead to a good working life later. But everything is not red as roses. Could be some challenges, and here I want to say that my impression to be in Vestland those 3 days, I have to say that you are some kind of role model in that. You are so far in this work. I think that you break the code and you are completing those points. This is not about the public sector that doesn't understand the volunteers. It's not. It's both can do some roles, and it's the lack of knowledge of each other, lack of dialogue, a lack of understanding about each other and their roles and tasks. And for the voluntary sector, sometimes you can be perceived as a close and distinctive. With that, I mean, if you have a very, very special interest, like build boats by hand, that can be a little group that's us doing it, and the others maybe feel, this is only for them. And you can give a impression of a closed circle. So the voluntary organizations have to be aware about that. And for the public sector, could be a lack of recognition and acceptance for the non-formal learning in the voluntary. I think that's the biggest challenges today. But as I said before, I have seen examples in 3 days here in Westland that you can come across those challenges and be a good collaboration partners. I have 10 volunteers political path, but I'm not going to through them because there are many of them. But this is not only for the volunteers; it's also for the public sector. You will get the slides afterwards, so you can read it. And to them, it's a puzzle. You have the spontaneous volunteers that we can see in social media when, as the Ukraine crisis, we have to help, we react. Some of those spontaneous volunteers have a very short lifetime. Some of them can lead to the next step called, and we have a lot of that in Norway, organized incorporated volunteers, which also is under a paraply of legal protection, equipment, training. In some ways, I will call it for a professional volunteerism. It's quite Scandinavian. I have here from my other colleagues. So, and in the center, like the glue, is the social and the learning in that organization, incorporated volunteerism. If you put together the two pieces of the puzzle with the municipalities, stakeholders with goals in inclusion, public health, and building and qualification, you can imagine how far we can go and do a very good work for the society. But we need something that get us together, and we can decide alliance, co-creation, or collaboration. I think it's better to start with collaboration to co-create something, and to the end, naturally, will be an alliance. Bilateral strategy of volunteering. And in that, I have to say again, there are many counties, council in Norway working with that, but you in Vestland, you have already one. So it's a very good example for the rest. So I think the bilateral strategy is based in knowledge, dialogue, understanding, recognition, and acceptance for both parts. And to the end, we have seen a lot. I want you to raise up because I will give you something a short one. If you stay, and you can do that also, our colleagues in their offices. If you just turn your thumbs, you point like me with your arm, your finger, and you turn only this part of the thumbs. As for you can turn around and mark the point your finger is pointing at. Return to the same place. Look your eyes. Do the same, but think in your head. Do the same exercise, but with your eyes shut. But think in yourself that you are doing this together with many, many people. Then open your eyes. Are you pointing at the same? No. It's an example that together we can reach far. Thank you very much.